You ever play a game that's extremely hard, yet also extremely fun and rewarding? Dark Souls, Super Meat Boy, Celeste, and The End Is Nigh are all games like that. Extremely difficult, but also well designed and really fun to play. No matter how many times you die, it still always feels like it's your fault. The level design is so meticulously crafted in order to make the game as fun and as difficult as possible. Well, I know a game just like that, and it's one of my favorite games ever. When I originally played the game, it actually took me about 2 years to actually beat it, because I found it so difficult I had to take a year-long break from it. That game is called, you've probably heard it before, I mean it's getting really popular because the DLC is just about to come out. It's Cuphead. I've sort of developed a kind of love-hate relationship with this game. Cuphead is a video game about two little boys who accidentally gamble their souls away to the devil. So the two boys spend the game trying to pay off their debts so they, don't lose their soul and die. Cuphead is a boss rush game. Each level has the player, that's you by the way, fighting a big scary enemy that changes forms throughout the fight. And it's awesome. This game is immensely difficult and extremely beautiful. In fact, the graphics was actually one of the main selling points of the game. Studio MDHR really wanted to make the game look like the cartoons of the early 1920s or so, and they freaking nailed it. The entire game sports a unique animation style called rubber hose animation. It was a very popular animation style in the early 1920s. It's called rubber hose because the characters would regularly twist and bend in ways that are physically impossible in real life.
Kinda like they were made out of rubber.
This style of animation has faded into obscurity over the years because it clearly took tons of time and money to pull off well. And Cuphead manages to recreate this mesmerizing animation style beautifully. Obviously, seeing as how the game is animated like a cartoon and it's become extremely popular, the only logical option is to, make a cartoon. Immediately as I saw the art style of this game, I wanted it to be a cartoon. So when I saw that it was happening, I was ecstatic. And let's just say that I wasn't disappointed.
Hey boys, how's that?
The story of the Cuphead Show is slightly different than the game. Cuphead and Mugman are two little boys who live alone with their parental guardian, Elder Kettle. One day, Cuphead gets bored, so he and Mugman decide to go find something to do. The boys then end up at a carnival. While there, Cuphead finds a game that he's really good at, so he starts showing off, failing to see that the game is called Soul Ball. Apparently, the game is actually owned by the devil. He uses this game to collect people's souls. If you lose the game, he takes your soul. That's fair. Well, Cuphead loses, so his soul gets taken away. Before the devil gets his soul, the two boys manage to escape, so the boys spend the show trying to figure out how to keep the devil from getting Cuphead's soul. Meanwhile, the devil's plotting a scheme to get Cuphead's soul back, because, Cuphead owes him a soul. This show does take a more episodic approach for the most part, but that is the character's overall goals. One thing you probably noticed is this looks different. I don't remember the devil being purple. Well, the reason the show looks so different is because the game was animated traditionally. By that I mean every single frame of animation was hand-drawn on cells, scanned into a computer, digitally painted, and slapped into the game. A grueling process, but ultimately worth it seeing how beautiful the final product was. But because the process is too time-consuming, costly, and difficult for a series, they opted for the easy way out. Not like the easy way out was easy, but it's easier than the other way. That being, animate the show digitally with rigs while also imitating the style of the game. And they somehow managed to combine these two animation styles perfectly. It looks so good. The show still uses rubber hose style animation, but it's all done digitally. It obviously doesn't look as good as the game does, but I'm not gonna sit here and pretend it doesn't look amazing. This is probably the most well animated cartoon I have ever seen. The character animations move so smoothly. Each character flows well into their movements, the squash and stretch is really nice, and the facial animation is top notch. Look at these faces!
Oh, it looks so good.
I also noticed that the characters all got slight redesigns. Some look way better, some look exactly the same, and some don't look that great. But first, the good ones. The two main boys, Cuphead and Mugman, honestly look way better now. Shrinking their noses and making their eyes a bit bigger not only makes them look younger, but it also just looks really adorable. And I like that they went with the yellow gloves instead of the white ones because it just looks better with these characters' color palettes. Elder Kettle also looks a bit better to me. I definitely prefer the more blue hue to his palette than the gold/bronze one. The one character I think they ruined has to be the devil. I guess in an attempt to make him look less scary and more goofy, they completely overhauled this guy's character design. First of all, instead of being completely gray, he's more of an indigo color with shiny red and blue highlights. I'm actually not all that opposed to this because it's still a dark enough color so he still looks recognizable, but he's also not a boring color so he also kind of pops. But for some godforsaken reason, they changed his horns, his eyes, his body size. He's much more lanky now. His ears and his nose. They gave him a big clown nose. The devil. Supposed to be one of the scariest things in existence. Gave him a clown nose. Okay, so none of this is objectively bad. In fact, he's got a great character design. Still got a nice, unique silhouette. He's got a great color palette. The redesign isn't actually worse, but something about his original character design made him really intimidating to me. It actually kind of made me feel threatened by him, and it made me want to kick his butt. In a world full of goofy cartoon characters, he was the only one that was genuinely serious and scary. This design doesn't do any of that. And I think that's a pretty big downgrade. Can I get a hashtag not my devil in the comments? The one thing I think was improved about his design is his new red pupils. This isn't really related, but I didn't know where to put this. But Miss Chalice is like the cutest cartoon character ever. Like, just look at her. Just look at that. She's just so flippin' cute. Anyway, Back on topic. Much like the game, the show uses watercolored paintings for the backgrounds. And just like the game, they look awesome. They're so highly detailed, full of character, and they also just look really freaking good. I'd hang this up on my wall if I could. One thing I noticed. Oh, Jesus. Rocket, what the heck? It did scare the crap out of me. One thing I noticed and definitely love is sometimes the backgrounds will change from watercolor paintings to 3D sculptures. If you didn't notice, some backgrounds in the game are actually 3D sculptures. These sculptures are actually real life sculptures that the staff made. They were photographed from a bunch of different angles and slapped into the game to make it feel like it's rotating. It's a really good homage to the old Fleischer Studio days when they'd do this. For some of the more dynamic moving backgrounds, they'd set up actual 3D sets for the cartoon characters to walk around in. So, obviously, in the show, they did this too. Every time they do it, it looks awesome. Sometimes it can feel a bit pointless. Like, why couldn't this have just been a painting? Like, you could have saved you so much time. But that's just really a nitpick, because every time it... What I'm trying to say is that it looks good. It just, sometimes it doesn't feel necessary. Most of the time, it looks awesome. Like, look at this. How did they do this? This is sick. What the hell? I'm so amazed. Even in still shots, I love how they experiment with shot composition. Way too many cartoons have boring, flat angles with reverse shots aplenty. That's really boring and honestly really kind of lazy. Like, do you not know how to draw your characters from more interesting angles? Come on, people, give me a little effort here. The Cuphead Show? This gives me effort. The writing for the show is pretty top-notch for the most part. It's clear that the writers needed an episode or two before they actually figured out how these characters work. Though the writers did get quite a lot of wiggle room when it came to writing these characters because they didn't really have personalities in the game. But I gotta say, this is exactly how I imagined these characters would act. Cuphead is kind of the do now, think later kind of guy who just wants to have fun, but he's also willing to help anyone out, no matter how much he doesn't want to.
My name is Cuphead. I like roller coasters and hot dogs and tilt-a-whirl and hot dogs and flying swings and hot dogs and tilt-a-whirl and hot dogs and flying swings and hot dogs and tilt-a-whirl and hot dogs and flying swings and hot dogs.
2,000 years later.
And tilt-a-whirl and hot dogs and flying swings and hot dogs and throwing up in roller coasters in that order.
Mugman's clearly the coward of the two, constantly getting worked up and nervous, while also willing to join in on the fun.
Dirt Dangerous doesn't do seaworthy. He does dangerous. Oh, now you're talking.
Their dynamic works really well. They're written so perfectly, they actually feel like real brothers. You know what I mean, constantly fighting while also caring for each other and helping each other out. I hate it when shows, especially kids shows, have characters who are supposed to be friends or siblings and they always get along, because that's not how siblings or friends work. Friends don't always agree, they argue and fight sometimes. Siblings aren't always going to be nice to each other. Sometimes siblings throw each other under the bus. The Cuphead Show is one of 2 shows I've seen that have been able to have a relationship that's this believable. And that other show being Regular Show. Regular Show stars 2 characters, Mordecai and Rigby. The 2 of them are lifelong friends and they get along real well, but they also fight and argue sometimes. I honestly think this is the first show I've ever seen with a dynamic that's this believable. Like, it actually feels like a real friendship. And the Cuphead Show has the same thing. Not only are the relationships of the characters really well written, but the show is also just really funny.
Alright, who are you 2 working for?
Working? We don't have jobs. Yeah, we're just a couple of dum-dums.
Sip it, ding dong, she don't gotta know we're a couple of dum-dums.
You probably noticed from the clips I've been showing throughout the whole video, but the show has a great sense of humor. It's the kind of humor you could probably find in any 2000s cartoon you could think of, but also with a slight dash of absurdist and dark humor from the 1930s. Sometimes jokes don't land.
You hear that? We ain't real.
We ain't?
But for the most part, I think the show is pretty hilarious. One thing that surprised me, which it honestly really shouldn't have, was musical numbers. As of now, in season 1, there are only about 4 songs, not counting the bumpin' theme song, and they're all amazing. All the songs manage to feel like different genres despite them all being some sort of jazz. Like, how did they even do that? Ribby and Croaks' Mutta song was definitely the worst of them, but that's the only one that I really think could have used some work.
And she never did run out on us. Not like our crummy dad.
Ghosts Ain't Real was a great song. It really gave off some spooky vibes, and I love it.
Now do you believe in... Oh!
I also really like the subtle, spooky, scary skeletons reference they made. That was cute. I like that the first musical number was a villain song. Oh, I love villain songs. So I'm glad that Cuphead got the villain song out of the way right off the bat and didn't make me wait for it. The 4th and final song in season 1 was Miss Chalice's Turn Up the Charm, and it's awesome. Not only is it beautifully choreographed and super catchy, but come on, it's Miss Chalice. I told you, she's adorable. So, this is a great cartoon. Some would even call it perfect. But is it a good video game cartoon? Well, as we all know, video game cartoons can be very, very bad.
It ain't over till a fat lady gets her wedding ring.
With a few exceptions, of course.
Sonic, how about giving these guys a lift in Blue Force 1?
Yeah, sorry. There's a reason it's called Blue Force 1 and not Blue Force 3.
Well, of course the Cuphead Show is a great video game cartoon. You know where I was going with this. The reason this is such a good video game cartoon, I think, is because whether you know about the game or not, you can enjoy the show. Fans of the game can watch the show and go,
Hey, I know that character.
or,
Oh boy, that boss fight was fun.
and people who don't know about Cuphead at all can watch the show as if it was a normal cartoon. That's the thing about Cuphead. I genuinely think that Cuphead is like the perfect mascot. Unlike Sonic or Mario, Cuphead isn't really aimed at a single demographic. He's appealing to children and teenagers because of his cute design, and he's appealing to older people because of the old-timey aesthetic. Kinda gives him a bit of a nostalgic feel despite being a new property. He checks all the boxes. He's literally a perfect mascot. He's a combination of new and old, so he's appealing to everyone. The only kind of person I see not liking anything Cuphead related is some angsty teen who thinks sarcasm is a personality trait. I will say this though, I wasn't at all surprised by how much I liked the Cuphead Show. It's exactly what I was thinking of when I thought of a Cuphead Show. There are some parts of the show that I think are kind of stinky, like some of the voice actors don't sound that great. Elder Kettle is definitely the worst to me. His voice is really annoying, especially when he's screaming.
I'm not old! I'm not hurt. Not one bit. I'm hip. Ah, my hip! Right! And guess what? You'll never take me alive! A worm? You'll grow to be so big! Oh, my back! Ow!
You just won't shut up!
Maybe I am disgusting.
The Devil's voice was also kind of underwhelming to me. They gave him a Papyrus from Undertale kind of voice with a British accent. It's not bad or anything. In fact, as I watched the show, the voice kind of started to grow on me. But before watching the show, I really wanted the Devil to be actually intimidating and scary. But it's whatever. It's a kid's show, so it needs a goofy villain. But yeah, I like the Cuphead Show. What? Why are you here? Why are you still here? What, do you want me to rate it? Do you want me to rate the show out of 10? Fine. 10 out of 10. It's the Dark Souls of cartoon. Now go away.